I'm going to string a Wilson Triad 2 tennis racket, and I'm going to string this not exactly according to the manufacturer's recommendation. There are 16 mains in this racket, and there's 19 crosses in the racket. I can use one-piece stringing, but if I use one-piece stringing, I'll come up on this outside main, and I'll go from this point to tie off that outside main. That outside main, then, there's about 3 inches of distance between that point right there and this point up here. And I don't want to do that. If I were to tie off this top cross at that same spot, there's about 1/2 of an inch of distance. So I'm cutting out about 2.5 inches of untensioned string that I think will give me a lot less drawback on this outside main. So what I'm going to do when I run my outside main up this way, I'm going to come up and run the 3rd cross coming across here, then the 2nd cross, and then the top cross, and tie off right here. So I'm going to use the left side of the racket as my short side. I'm going to come up, run the top 3 crosses, and tie it off. With the long side now, I'm going to come up, run the 4th cross, which is the 1st cross above those outside mains, run the 4th cross across, and then come down the racket all the way down to the bottom and tie the string off. When I run in my mains now, the instructions tell me to start at the head, so I'm going to start up here at the top, and it tells me to skip the holes in the head 6, 8, 10, and 11. I don't know if you can see this real well or not, but here's my first main right here. So this grommet hole would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'll skip 6, 7, I'll skip 8, 9, 10, and 11 I skip, and then 12 is my outside main. So when it tells me to skip these 4 holes right here with the mains, I'm going to do that, but when I start stringing the crosses, I'm going to fill in all of those grommets. All of these skipped holes are for cross strings. Down in the throat of the racket now, there are no skipped holes. So I'm going with my mains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have my racket mounted now, and this racket just happens to be 28 inches long. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the short side over here to run the 8 mains and the top 3 crosses. So what I'm going to do is measure out the string that I need. Since this is 28 inches long, every 3 racket lengths is 7 feet. So if I go 6 racket lengths, I'll have 14 feet. 5, 6. Now I've got my string measured off now to where I've got 14 feet for the short side. When I looked up the Wilson stringing instructions, it said that I only needed 9 foot 6 inches for the short side, and I needed 38 feet of string. Okay, I've got all my main strings ran in now, and on my short side over here, when I ran my last main, I measured the length of string here, and I've got 4 foot 10 inches. I started out with 14 feet, which means that up to this point right here, on the short side, I used 9 foot 2 inches of string. I'm using Fortin Sweet 16 string. I'm stringing it at 62 pounds, which means if I would have followed the instructions by Wilson, I'd have 4 inches of string left out here to run all the way up to this point and tie my string off. I'm glad I didn't listen to the instructions and I added some extra string on here. I'm down to the bottom of the racket now, and remember I said that I was going to, I was thinking about running the 2nd cross from the bottom last so that I would be closer to a tie-off hole? Well, that's what I'm doing right now. The disadvantage to doing that is that you're going to have a hard weave. when you pull a hard weave, sometimes you have to, or some people will pull that hard weave 2 times, but I don't think it's necessary. Let me show you why I don't think it's necessary to pull that hard weave 2 times. I'm going to put a little tension on this string and hold this clamp in there so that I've got my string fairly tight there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull tension and mark how far back this tension head goes. Stopped right there. I'm going to hold my gripper so that the string doesn't slip, and you can see there's a lot of slack in that string now. But when I pull tension again, it goes right back to that mark. So whether I pull tension 2 times or don't, pulling the string the same distance. I'm all done stringing my racket now. Main thing I was trying to show you in this video was just to plan ahead. I don't normally string the top 3 strings up here on the crosses, but I did it this time just because I thought it would work on this racket. If I look at the Wilson stringing instructions, it told me to use 9 foot 6 inches from the short side. Like I showed you before, that'll give you about 4 inches of string left over to tie your knot. Good luck. I'm glad that I measured the length of this racket and actually knew how much string I was going to use before I actually did that. If I was using a polyester string in here, I doubt it would have even reached the, had enough string to do the last main.